Hi, I'm Instructor Zac and this is the third in our series on footwork. Once again, we're going to start with our calf extensions because we need that strength and it's a good warm-up. Now, in previous videos, what we've consistently mentioned is that there are two things you're trying to do with footwork. The first is get into a position where you can do a kick effectively, and secondly, to make sure that when you get to that position, your body is in the right kind of shape for the kick to be efficient. In the previous video, we looked at maintaining the right shape. Now we're moving into getting into the right position relative to your training partner. Parts of this video are going to get quite technical and theory oriented. And so if that starts getting beyond what you're ready for, that's okay. By all means, just skip through to the exercises more towards the end. The key concept that we're going to be looking at throughout this whole video is the idea of center line. If you imagine a line coming from the center of my chest out towards my training partner, I can only do effective techniques along this center line, which means that in order to spar effectively, I'm trying to maintain contact of this center line towards my partner. However, if I'm facing directly at my partner, their center line is also connected to me. So, at all points in the sparring, what I'm trying to do is maintain my center line attached to theirs, but break their center line's attachment to me. Now, just shaking out those leg extensions. The easiest way to do that is, clearly, to sidestep. Their center line now moves past me, but provided I've turned as I step, my center line is now still connected to them. And that's the guts of what this drill is about. So, we go back into our long back stance, our slightly deeper back stance as well, that we've been using in our previous videos, making sure that our knees are pointing outwards, not caving inwards, and that our back is nice and straight. And what we're going to work on today is moving forwards and on an angle so that my opponent's center line is now moving past me, but hopefully, as well as moving on that angle, I've turned as I come in so that my center line is still connected to my opponent. So, into our shape, and we're just bouncing as we have previously. And we're going to go on this angle first. At first we're going to get the directional movement, and then we're going to look at the turn. So, on the angle, and back. It looks similar to what we did before with forwards and backwards, but now we're just going slightly diagonally. And to the side, and back. Side, 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 back. Two more. Side, back. Side, back. And shake it out. Now we change stance and we go the other way. Once again, onto this diagonal. And we're just bouncing. 1, back. 2, back. 3, back. 4, back. 5, back. 6, back. 7, back. 8, back. 9, back. 10, back. 11, back. 12, back. 13, back. 14, back. 15, back, 16, back, 17, back, 18, back, 19, back, 20, back, and check it out. Now, you'll notice that when I was moving to the side, I wasn't moving purely sideways. I was moving only a little bit sideways, just enough to slip off that center line. If we think about how we spar and where we do techniques, I've kind of got 4 angles that I can do effective technique at. Directly forwards, all of our nice, happy front kick techniques and related things. Also directly sideways. Our side kicks are similar. I won't do the same to the other side because the wall is there. And of course, directly behind us. Now, there are some inefficiencies in parts of those. So if someone is behind me, I need to turn and look before I can extend the kick. Similarly, if I've been focusing forwards and suddenly someone is beside me, I need to readjust to the fact that they're over here before I can launch that side kick. But I'm still working on that right angle. Directly forwards, directly behind, and directly to either side. Which means that my windows for where I'm vulnerable are these 45s. Here, 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 here. Realistically, these 2 behind me are very difficult to get into because the sheer amount of distance that needs to be covered is very high. But the idea of the 45s is still important because that means that we're trying to get into these pockets here and here. It's not that we can't throw a technique to this 45, it's that it's less efficient. If I'm doing a punch, yes, I can punch here, but it's just not an efficient location. I'd need to turn to face the 45 and then throw a punch. Similarly, it's not that I can't punch sideways, it's that I'd much rather turn first. So, what we want to do is slip off our opponent's center line, just enough, because now we're in this pocket of safety. And from here, our opponent is not oriented so as to do an effective technique. If someone has slipped into that pocket here, I can still throw an arm in some vague way or a kick in some way, but it's much less powerful, it's much less efficient. So I might be shifting from a front kick that I'm intending to go forwards, I now have to open up my hips to kick, and that's always going to be a weaker action because it's not how the biomechanics of the body work well. And so that's what we're trying to do, just slip off the line. Of course, if I can only move in one direction, that leaves vulnerabilities. If all I can do is move to the side that my front leg is at, here, then my opponent knows they don't need to cover the other pocket. They don't need to be aware of that as a risk. So we're going to do the same drill as before, but where previously we had only gone to the side that has our lead leg, now we're switching legs as we go. So we switch as we move onto the wrong side. My left leg is in front, my opponent's expecting me to take this left 45, so I'm going to take the other 45, and to maintain my orientation, I'm going to switch stance as I go forwards. Which means there are 3 different things that I'm doing in this movement. I'm moving into a spot, I'm changing legs, and I'm changing angle. My rear leg goes first, the rest of me follows, and I've landed in approximately the angle I'm after. Moving into the drill. So, cross-body movement with the foot switch. 1, and back. 2, and back. 3, and back. 4, and back. 5, and back. You'll notice that when I'm landing, I'm trying to keep my heels off the ground. 6, and back. 7, and back. 8, and back. 9, and back. 10, and back. 11, and back. 12, and back. 13, and back. 14, and back. 15, and back. 16, and back. 17, and back. 18, and back. 19, and back. 20, and back. And shake it out, and change stance. Same again, now to the other 45. 1, and back. 2, and back. 3, and back. 4, and back. 5, and back. 6, and back. 7, and back. 8, and back. 9, and back. 10, and back. 11, and back. 12, and back. 13, and back. 14, and back. 15, and back. 16, and back. 17, and back. 18, and back. 19, and back. 20, and back. And shake it out. Now the guts of that movement looks an awful lot like stepping. From a nice, happy, normal back stance, I could just as easily step and slide, because it's mostly a forwards movement with a small sideways shift. So why don't we do that? Well, there are several things to know. Firstly, if you're sparring with junior belts, you probably should slow it down to be much more of a stepping motion, because they're not moving as quickly. If you just go full speed, they don't learn anything and you don't learn anything. And given that the point is about positioning, being able to do this slowly will test whether your positioning is any good. So with junior belts, absolutely treat it much more of a step than a shift. The reason why we want to be able to do it as a shift, where just at the end both feet are off the ground, is because it gets faster and because it lets us reorient ourselves. As we noted with the first drop, my centre line is still pointing forwards. I've broken my opponent's contact with me, but I haven't maintained contact either. I'm out of danger, but I'm not in an angle to do effective techniques, because my body is angled past my opponent. I need to be able to rotate my angle to connect back to my training partner. The same applies with the stance swap version. I've broken the connection, but my own connection is again moving past my training partner rather than connecting to them. And what doing this in the air does is it allows me to rotate as I come through. So rather than simply having to do here and then step and turn, which is very slow, I'm coming through and my back foot has come all the way around already, and I'm in the right position to do an effective technique because I've kept the connection of my center line to the target. that idea of doing things together is critical because my training partner moves at roughly the same speed I do. If I've stepped offline so that their connection is broken and they're aiming past me, the first thing they're going to do is turn to reconnect to me. So if I've stepped and now I need to turn, that turn is going to take me the same amount of time that it takes them. If you're finding that in sparring the only way that your landing techniques is to be faster than your opponents, that probably means that you're relying on youthful speed and possibly long legs. And I will confess I am absolutely guilty of that as well. But ideally, you should be able to do things efficiently so that you don't need to be racing all the time. So rather than step, turn, you can do that step and turn in one motion. That way, your training partner is still fixing their orientation to reconnect to you at the same time that you are completing your kick. You've removed a step from the process and now you have a tempo advantage without needing to be physically faster because you're one step ahead in the process. So we're going to do the same drill that we did first of all, same side shift, this one, but as we slide across, we're going to adjust our angle so that rather than just still pointing directly forwards, my rear leg comes around, so I'm once again pointed at where my training partner is. Breaking their connection, but maintaining my own. Once again, 20 times on each leg. 1. Yep, good. I've got the angle I want. And back. 2. I have the angle I want. And back. And a bit fast now. 3. Back. 4. Back. 5. Back. 6. Back. 7. Back. 8. Back. 9. Back. 10. Back. 11. Back. 12. Back. 13. Back. 14. Back. 15. Back. 16. Back. 17. Back. 18. Back. 19. Back. 20. Back. And shake it off. Same on the other side now. Forwards into the side, but also rotate. Yep, this is the angle I want. As you can hear, I landed heavily. That means I need to work my calves harder to keep my heel off the ground. That's a bit better, that's a bit more quiet. I've got my angle, I'm off the center line. That feels about right. And back. And 4. And back. 5. And back. 6. And back. 7. And back. 8. And back. 9. And back. 10. And back. 11. And back. 12. And back. 13. And back. 14. And back. I'm creeping forwards. That means that I need to make sure that I'm going back the same distance. 14. And back. 15. And back. 16. And back. 17. And back. 18. And back. 19. And back. 20. And back. Shake it out. Next logical step, the stance switch with the same thing. What you may be noticing as you move through is that you may be struggling to keep your feet the same distance apart, so they might be creeping forwards like this. You may also be finding that one foot is turning inwards a lot. That's why the second video that we did in this series focused so heavily on keeping that good stance while we move, so that we're not collapsing inwards collapsing inwards or losing our positioning. Because as we noted in that video, if you lose your positioning, you can't do a good technique. I might be in the right location to kick, but if my knees are all collapsed inwards, I've got no posture, the kick's not going to be worth anything because it won't have the structure behind it. So, the crossover step, now with the rotation added to the end. 1, and back. 2, and back. And that time I crept in a little bit too much, I need to keep a wider stance. 3, and back. 4, and back. 5, and back. 6, and back. 7, and back. 8, and back. 9, and back. 10, and back. 11, and back. 12, and back. 13, and back. 14, and back. 15, and back. 16, and back. 17, and back. 18, and back. 19, and back. 20, and back. And shake it out. And one more set, this time to the other diagonal. Alrighty. That way, side step and stance switch, adding a rotation. And 1. Yep, I've got the angle I want, but I'm a little bit cracked. And back. 2. That's angle and that's distancing. Good. 3. And back. 4. And back. 5. And back. 6. And back. 7. And back. 8. And back. 9. And back. 10. And back. 11. And back. 12. And back. 13. And back. 14. And back. 15. And back. 16. And back. 17. And back. 18. And back. 19. And back. 20. And back. And my assistant has now decided to become very vocal, but that's alright, we've reached the end of today's drills. Practice that at home. Practice being just offline, but landing with a rotation so that you're still connected. Practice landing with your heels off the ground. We don't want to be thumping onto the ground like that for 2 reasons. 1, everyone else in the house will be angry with you. 2, if my heels are on the ground, I'm slow. If the ball of my foot is on the ground, I'm fast. In later videos, we will look at what you do once you're in those positions and how you choose where you want to be for the technique you're doing. But for now, just practice those drills. Thank you.